Squanch!
You know, it wasn't that long ago that I turned to one of my friends and I said, hey, I'll bet you that Delta Airlines economy class could stump American Airlines first class any day. So today, I decided to put exactly that to the test when I go to LAX and back using Delta Airlines economy and American Airlines first class. Today we're starting our journey at the SeaTac airport, which just so happens to be a little bit under construction at the moment, but it's still one of my favorite airports of all time. Our journey today at SeaTac starts with Delta Airlines economy class. And unfortunately, it's not looking great right off the bat. All I see are these signs for self-tagged bag drop, and I can't find my specific bag drop location. It's possible that this could be user error, so I'll try my best not to hold this against Delta. Turns out, though, that this is the line. The self-tagged bag drop will be helpful, and after waiting in a bit of a long line, it got tagged, and I got on my way. Now, I arrived at the airport about 3 hours early, and most of that is because I like to pregame in the lounge. But you can see here that it wasn't entirely necessary. It took me maybe 15 minutes to get through the entirety of baggage and the security. Now come with me, ladies and gents, and in between as we go on an adventure to find the Priority Pass Lounge in Satellite A at SeaTac Airport. You know, fun fact, I used to bring girls here on dates all the time. I can think of 2 or 3 instances just right off the top of my head where I came to the baggage claim to people watch or watch some airplanes take off. The airport's always been a place of wonder for me. It's always been really cool, but I'd love to talk to one of those girls today and see what they really thought of the airport date, you know? Another fun fact at the SeaTac airport, very often in the baggage claim, you will find a wild bird that has somehow managed to make it inside the building. While I was on my journey, I found one of these metered phone booths. Now, I am familiar with these little phone booths. I see them in my corporate office pretty often. In fact, I'm actually sitting in one right now recording voice lines, but I've never seen one be metered. So I decided to check on the price. And guys, this is absolute insanity. $10 for 15 minutes? You would never catch me spending $45 to spend 90 minutes in a tiny little booth. A lot of airports will put up some fun art or some concept designs, but nobody really does it like Seattle in my opinion. Like this piece, one of my favorites.
Wow.
Seattle's proprietary Priority Pass Lounge, the Club at Sea. It was a little busy when I arrived today, but not too busy, and I could still sprawl out and have a comfortable time. Now, it is really telling that the only footage that I really have is of this fly with a background of an under-construction light rail bridge. You know, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world, and it's always full of people. But nonetheless, it's still a great club to be a part of, especially when you get it for free off of a credit card. Alright, and a couple hours later, and we are ready to go. Let me tell you why I like nighttime flights especially. The airport really ends up looking like a liminal space. It's really awesome to walk through. But we walk through this little liminal space and all the way down into the basement, and we take the tram a couple stops to our gate, which I believe was C, but it might have been... Alright, here we are. You know, the plane doesn't look that bad. It's pretty bright and pretty open and clean. The first thing I did when I sat down is I started playing with that in-flight entertainment. I gotta give Delta props every single time for having that screen on the back of the seat, and Delta always has phenomenal options. You know, and it's pretty crazy to think about, Delta probably has the oldest fleet of all domestic US carriers, and yet they have some of the cleanest and nicest cabins I've ever been in. They're really updated and they really keep that shit nice. And here we go, it's takeoff time. I'm gonna let this play in full for you guys, just so that you can experience the beauty of nighttime takeoffs. They're some of my favorite. And now that we're all acquainted with the altitude, let's go ahead for an all-inclusive loo review. I must say, the 787 with Delta has the really nice mood lighting in there, very clean, and it's a pretty spacious bathroom for what it's worth. I gotta give Delta points for having a nice bathroom on flight. Also to note with the loo review, it was clean the entire flight. Granted, it's only a couple of hours, but I saw flight attendants go in there a couple of times and make sure it was all tidied up and not covered in water, and I really appreciated that. Moving on to the cabin, the vibe is kept very well with this blue mood lighting. I really enjoy it. Cabin looks are wonderful. Now coming in for a beautiful and smooth landing here at LAX. I always love coming into the city and seeing all the beautiful lights, and it really does look like Grand Theft Auto. As a future courtesy to flight attendants and passengers, I like to put down the window shade, or in this case up. It just keeps the cabin a little bit cooler. Landing at LAX was a bit of a shocker for me. Granted, it's late at night and there's probably not a lot of flights going through, and it's post-COVID. I shouldn't be expecting a lot, but there was nobody here. Almost more empty than the Seattle airport. But all that being said, that is the Delta Airlines economy experience. When I see you guys in the morning, we're going to be going for American Airlines FIRST CLASS. Good morning, welcome to LAX. As you can see, we have our first class boarding ticket and we're heading upstairs to the gates. I've already checked my bag at this point and didn't get any footage of it just because of how fast and concise it was. I showed up and within a minute I had my boarding pass and my bag was tagged and I was headed upstairs. It was really incredible. They're gonna get a 9 for that. Have you guys ever wondered what it looks like to go through the TSA x-ray machines? Well, I did too, and it's actually a lot more boring than I thought it was gonna be. But here you go. And there I am, coming out at the end. Hi guys! The first stop I took was at the Admirals Club to see if I could get myself any first class action. Unfortunately, that was a bust, so I busted out the Priority Pass app, and that's where things really got confusing. Now, something was fishy right off the bat. The app didn't look like it normally looked like, and the information it was giving me on the club that I could visit was very vague in its location. So I decided I would go on a hunt and see if I could find it in, what was the Tom Bradley International Terminal? This goes to the Tom Bradley International. I'll be honest, this has been more than an adventure. I spotted it, I think. Tom Bradley International over there. The escalator's broken. We got power through it. Okay, well now we're in a liminal space, so. Well, it was getting pretty close to my boarding time and I couldn't find any Priority Pass lounge, so I decided to kick in the hat and call it a day. And when I was walking back is when I discovered a little sign from the Korean Airlines lounge that said no Priority Pass allowed. And that's when it clicked in my head that there is no Priority Pass lounge at LAX. So, ladies, gentlemen, and bees in between, our answer is here. Our problem is solved. But something went wrong. You see, while I was getting frustrated looking for the terminal, I decided I would take a ladder and a half of Xanax. And for those of you that don't know, that's kind of a lot. You know the popular Drake song, he took half a Xan, 13 hours till he land.
I did half a Xan, 13 hours till I land, had me out like a light. Hey.
I took about triple that. You know, at the time, I didn't really think about it. It was just an off the whim, right? You know, I was just feeling frustrated, and I was like, let me just pop some of these. I was feeling fuck it. But that really started to become a problem when I became super forgetful and tired, and I couldn't find my way back from the international terminal, because that was a whole maze to get there. Man, that security line's really filling up. But asking for help really did not go as well as planned. I went to the lady and asked for help, asked where my terminal was, and she was explaining that the terminal I said didn't exist. And when I looked away, she said, look at me. So we're gonna go find it. I don't know where it is. So unbeknownst to me, whatever she was saying was completely correct, and I was wrong, so I got even more lost. But eventually I realized that she was right, and I didn't want her to see me be wrong, so I snuck around her when I went back the other way. Somehow, by the mercy of God, or whatever, I made it to my gate on time. And yeah, that lady was right. My gate doesn't exist, because I had to hop on this little public bus with everybody, and we had to drive down the tarmac for 15 minutes to get to my gate. Although, it was pretty cool to drive on the tarmac. I gotta admit, that was awesome. It was around this time when our bus arrived that I realized that the lady was correct and my gate did not exist, and I did need to go to Terminal 4 in order to catch this flight. And for that, I'm sorry. You were right, Terminal Lady. But holy moly, walking onto the plane had the Xanax fucking kicked in. I could barely hold myself steady when I was walking up this ramp. Here it is, our little Embraer flight. Taking a quick little look-ski at it before we hop on a 175 by SkyWest. And here's my seat, and it looked very comfortable. Boys and girls, let me tell you, it was. This footage that you're seeing right here was the last thing I took before I dozed off onto my little Xan nap. So with that, let's talk about it. Starting off on in-flight entertainment, Delta really takes the cake here at an 8 out of 10. It's amazing that they still have those screens, and they have unlimited options of movies, TV shows, games, and a service map. I love Delta Airlines for those screens. Unfortunately, American Airlines First Class cannot follow suit, and they get a 5 out of 10, no screen, limited options, and in order to access those options, you have to go on your phone and pay for the Wi-Fi on their flight. Moving on to service, Delta Airlines always gives a consistently great product, and I gotta give them a 7. No real complaints, but it's not amazing. They treat me very well. If any mistakes happen, they happen to comp you very well. And I gotta give them a really solid score for that. Now, if we want to talk about outstanding, extraordinary, going above and beyond, American Airlines First Class, I arrived at that check-in counter and immediately my bag was tagged. I wasn't there for a minute before I got my boarding pass, my tag, and I was ready to go heading up the stairs. That was outstanding. American Airlines First Class really gets a 9 out of 10. Moving on to the seat and amenities, Delta Airlines Economy Class gets a solid 7 out of 10. They always give a solid product that I can't really complain about. The screen being there really offers you a nice distraction. They got a lot of leg room, which I really appreciate. And they have that universal plug right there, which also has USBs in it. I think that's super sick. It's a great spot. And I personally love flying Delta. Now, of course, American First Class is gonna have a higher score. They don't have the screens, unfortunately, but it was a comfortable seat. Had I stayed awake for the entire flight, that might have changed. But luckily, due to my Xanax nap, it was the most wonderful experience. It was blissful. By the time I sat down, I was already asleep. American Airlines First Class seat gets an 8 out of 10 for that astonishing Xan nap that I had. Moving on to food now, Delta Airlines takes the cake with this one with their branded Delta Biscoff cookies. Dude, those are so good. This lady loves them, and I love them too. I love a good smile on my face every time I see the Delta branded Biscoff cookies. Unfortunately, they can't get much higher than a 7 because there's no hot food. And you know, Delta Biscoff cookies can only take you so far. Those almonds were also really good with the salted. All around solid. Delta Airlines with the economy class gets a 7 out of 10 on food. American Airlines, I didn't really get to taste it, unfortunately, because of my Xan nap, so I have to rate them similarly. Unfortunately, I don't have the heart to give them a same score because American Airlines doesn't even have branded Biscoff cookies, and they give you mini pretzels. So I have to rate them a 6. Had I tried them, it might have been even lower, but, you know, obviously, I wasn't there. I have to play fair within my own rules. It's a point though. And finally, we're moving on to cleanliness and vibes of the cabin. I gotta say, Delta Airlines really knocks it out of the park. They have a pretty fucking clean cabin, and I love that blue lighting. Delta Airlines gets a 7 out of 10 for me. American Airlines, they didn't have the vibe lights, unfortunately, but it was a really comfortable seat, and it was kept very, very clean, at least in the first class cabin. I gotta rate them similarly at a 7. All right, so it's time to round up the scores. Delta Airlines first, coming in with their solid score of 36 out of 50 for their economy class seat to LAX. That gives them just over a 3.5 star rating on the Evans scale. American Airlines first class comes in just short of that at 35 out of 50, leaving them at the exact halfway mark at 3.5 stars. Delta Airlines economy class took the cake just like I thought, but it was an amazing fight that I never would have expected. I sat through that whole economy class flight, and just because I got frustrated in the airport, took some Xanax, and I missed my whole first class flight. But that's okay because I got to experience everything important that I needed to rate the flight. Well, that's it. That's the end of our video. Thanks so much for joining me, and thanks so much for listening to my story. If you'd like to see any more, you can go ahead and pull a subscribing to one of our various channels here. And thank you so much for joining us.